I got a question. I got a couple questions that you answered, but I'm going to deal with this question first, and then I'll deal with the other question that I got later. Um, the question basically was: Is um, is a collaring deeper than a marriage? Um, that's a really tough question because we're dealing with two completely different things here. Okay, we're completely two completely different universes. When it comes to um, again marriage and collaring, they're not the same thing. They're you have to separate them because marriage, as we know it, is deeply ingrained into society about what it is and so on and so on. Collaring, for what it is a relatively new thing. And when I say relatively new, it's only been around as we know it probably since the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s. Um, it kind of came together uh, mostly out of the gay leather community. And because it really was, there wasn't anything analogous to that in a heterosexual community. A lot of the heterosexual aspects of leather, BDSM specifically, is a relatively new thing. Even though the history of doing what we do is ancient, because for the longest, I mean, just since the beginning of humans, um, consensual slavery is something that has existed. But the concept of a mutual agreed upon master slave relationship is a relatively new idea. So let's keep that in mind. For me, you're talking about somebody who I already have one collared slave. I'm working towards collaring a second slave. It is incredibly difficult to explain because the rules are very different. I don't live with my collared slave. She lives a completely different part of the town in her own place. My other lives in another part of the state. And the third girl I have, um, lives in Florida. And then I'm still working with a fourth that also lives in another part of the country. Um, the thing is that what because of what I do, the way I do it, it's incredibly difficult and incredibly complicated. Much, much more complicated than a traditional marriage. Traditional marriage is a very straightforward thing. More than one, person two, what genders these are now in the United States doesn't matter. They get together, they decide they love each other, they go off, they get married. With what we do, person one, person two, again, genders don't matter, they get together, they don't have anybody to go to. It's an interpersonal thing. That's it. What we do is, to me, a lot deeper because of the amount of time that it takes to do what we do. We take a lot of time, a lot of energy, long time, a lot of thought to get to where we are. To the point where the collar that I have on my girl to me, is one of the most important things I have ever done with her. Okay, my Christmas gifts to her at this point usually revolve around her collar. Last year, I gave her a new collar. This year, I gave her a frame where to display her collar. She doesn't wear it all the time. Even though she doesn't wear it all the time, she still has it. It's still on. It's still part of her. It is because it is like the most important thing in the world to a slave is to have a collar, to be owned, to be loved, to be cared for, to know that they are beholden to someone and someone is beholden to them. Marriage is. I've had a marriage. My marriage was a very much of a spur of the moment, hey, do you want to? And the dissolving of the marriage was immensely hard and stupid. A collar can be removed at any time for any purpose. I don't ever see me taking the collar off of my girl, pet. I don't ever see me taking the collar off of her. And when I get to the point of collaring baby girl, I don't see me ever taking it off of her. I have given a lot of collars away in my life. I have collared several women in my life. And each of them was immensely hard when the collar had to come off. But there was no legal ramification. Versus marriage, there is. This is apples and oranges. There is no, I don't know anything analogous to non BDSM to relate it to. Collars are incredibly tough because they should be incredibly tough to get and they should be incredibly tough to take away or to take off. You're committing yourself. Now, with marriage, supposedly it's a lifelong thing. We know how well that works because how many, what's the divorce rate in this country? Over 50%. I can't say collars are any better, but to me, I would rather collar someone than marry someone because I know that I have spent time with them. I have spent at least a year or two getting to know them, for them to getting to know me before that final slave collar goes on. Something that they had to work for, something I had to work for to get. Wedding rings, you don't have to work for them. Literally, you just go to the store and buy it. There's just no work for it. So, yeah, it's one of these things that collars to me are that important. So, um, I wish I could say more about it. Unfortunately, like I said, there's no real analogous between the two. I think collars are a lot better in the fact that you have to earn them. There's no just, hey, do you want to get married, and boom, you get married. There's an actual time frame between, hey, I want to collar you, to when I actually have a collar on you. There is a process you have to work through. So that's it. Like, subscribe, support if you want. That's it for now. Be well and safe.